now we would like to switch back from the VC to the founder side. And as you know, Visionaries is not only about the founders that we back, but also the entrepreneurs that back us. And that's why I'm very, very excited to welcome Daniel Dines, the founder and CEO of UiPath, which has done a very impressive IPO 2 weeks ago. And I think even more impressive, it's one of the greatest software as a service growth stories that are really originated in Europe. And Daniel is also an investor in our fund. And instead of myself interviewing him, wouldn't it be much more fun if we had one of our portfolio founders interviewing him? I think yes. So I'm very excited to also welcome Hanno, founder and CEO of Personio, that actually also turned unicorn this year, and we'll take a fireside chat with Daniel speaking a little bit about growing successful SaaS companies out of Europe. So Daniel, Hanno, big welcome, and over to you.
Thank you, Rob, and happy to be for once on the other side, not being the entrepreneur interviewed, but actually the one interviewing. Hi, Daniel, and great to have the conversation today.
Hey, Hanno and Robert. It's great to see you, and I would have preferred to be on the other side, Hanno. No, but it's good. I always like to share, some of my early background, my story. It's fun, and especially with mind-liked people.
Absolutely, agree. And maybe after the IPO of Personio, we can turn things around and you can interview me. But in the meantime, I think you're the more exciting person and exciting company for now, and therefore very interested to hear some of your stories. And I know the standard question that you always get asked in these podcasts is about the history. And while I think you've probably told this story a lot of times, still curious to just hear a little bit of back in 2005 for you leaving Microsoft and starting your own company. What was the reason for that back then, and how did you go about it?
I was not happy in Microsoft and in the US, obviously. And I always had this drive to build something. I have started my first company when I was 20. It was a recruitment company, actually. And then I went into programming and I got employed. But during the years, I always wanted to build products. And I thought going back to Romania will allow me to tap into less expensive, good engineering resources, which was in fact true, but everything else didn't work. You don't have a market here, you don't have investors, you don't have mentors, you don't have product managers, you don't have salespeople, you have nothing. You have a bunch of engineers that can help you build a product. But again, everything else was a disaster, but it was also a tremendous learning experience because I had to become a bit of everything else. My first pivot was into becoming a product manager because that was how someone had to do it. I stopped basically writing code all day long. So I had to become a product manager, and in turn that made me much closer to our customers, understand early trends. And I've come to appreciate a lot more doing something for customers that customers like versus just something that I, as an engineer, liked. So early years were good. You have hope, but it's been really a lot of hardship into the making in the early years.
I bet it was, and I can imagine. Only we're both European entrepreneurs, but certainly I've started a company on much more fertilized ground with investors being already here by the time I started the company. So when you started the company, you just mentioned about identifying trends. I think today, RPA is a big category. UiPath, certainly one of the leading players in the space, if not trailblazing the space as a whole. But what led you to back then identify that trend already and realize that there's a company to build in that space?
Well, we have started as building as a tough engineering problem because it's not easy to solve it. to be able to look at the computer screen and understand it as a human user, it's quite complex. But frankly, we didn't understand what RPA would become. The term were not even coined back then, 2005. But we knew somehow that we are on to something big. We hope somehow, we had the dream. This is a technology that can bring us, help us build a good company, a great company. So we have kept insisting on building it without having some kind of a breakthrough in terms of customers. But we like the technology. We had some early interest, but mostly it's important to know that we have started like an OEM company. We've built an SDK that other software company were using for different integration purposes with systems that didn't provide an API. So they were using our computer vision approach. But OEM businesses are very difficult. And it's difficult to scale an OEM business. But in turn, it helps you build a really good technology because you are seeing lots of use cases out there and you deal with other software engineers, it's a bit easier. So we had the advantage to perfect this technology, but without understanding the market. I didn't realize, coming from my engineering background, that in the business world, in the business operations world, there are so many inefficiencies that really there are so many manual repetitive processes. And when we have found the product market fit, it was like a match in heaven because our technology was literally the best in business, way better than people that understood earlier than us the market. And when we got into the market, it was the only reason why, few engineers in this remote corner of the world were able to leap ahead really much more established companies. It was just the technology was really better. And it was a tribute to our early OEM days when we've seen so many use cases and we built something that was ready to scale.
Yeah, no, and I think it once more, of course, pays off to not scale early just because you see a market will really invest into the technology and building the best product in the market, which then pays off in the long run. But still, if we look at about the history of UiPath, I mean, nowadays, of course, a lot of companies with a pitch deck raise a lot of money and then go on. You've bootstrapped the business for 10 years from 2005, and then afterwards you kind of inflected and grew from 1 million to 100 million ARR faster than every company before, even Slack. So what was it really just that point in time when you hit product market fit, or what was the point that changed at that point in time? And how did you realize that things were all of a sudden different after 10 years?
Well, we had a few death-like experiences. And it's a very funny story. In I think June 2009, we were on the verge of having zero money in the bank. And I was literally on the verge of telling a few people that work with me that I cannot pay the salary this month and we need to get, to see what we can do. And at that point, we got an interesting order from AIG Egypt. And AIG was bankrupt in the United States at that point for like $10,000 for our technology. And that saved the company. And it was literally on kind of the 8th of June when the order came. And I had to pay the salary by 10th. That was kind of the custom. So it was really the saving grace of the company. But we had a few more. And we, in 2011, up to 2011, we had the consulting arm that bootstrapped the product arm of the company. Yeah. And we lost our biggest customer, a US startup that really went to resizing, to sizing down because of the crisis and everything. And we had just our OEM business. But we've decided, let's keep the the doors open for a couple of more years. Let's do the best we can do. But if it's not working, let's call it a quit, and we shut down the company. And then we build our low-code, no-code product that use our OEM technology, but pack it in a much easier to use way to automate the business process, the dragging and wrapping and dropping components that makes it quite easier. And we were again on the verge of being bankrupt because our OEM customers didn't care about our low-code, no-code environment because they were developers. They wanted to write code. But we were fortunate to be found by a BPO company out of India. And they, at this time, were doing a project with a competitor of us. But at that time, I didn't know they were our competitor. And but they were unhappy with that company because it was quite inflexible in how to deal, in pricing, in everything, and quite a bit arrogant. So they were searching for something they can use, and they found they really liked our low-code, no-code studio. That was very visual, great user experience, and they gave us a chance. Basically, they let us to do the same project in parallel as the other company, and we did it, and we did it better, and we understand. Wow, this is actually a big market. Believe me, at that time, I didn't know what BPO means. I didn't know that this business exists at all, because I thought, how come it exists in the world of APIs, of databases, CRM, ERP system? Why people are doing the same manual transactions? But when we discover, yes, it exists, it's big, then it was no turning back. And we started to find other BPOs that were interested in working with us, and in turn, they've become our first channel partners. Because initially, we were a complete indirect business.
Yeah.
The BPOs helped us to get into the hands of really huge customers. And in parallel, we got our first seed investment from Early Bird. So everything started to really look good in front of us. And, after 10 years of hardship, of being in the trenches and having every day doubting yourself, doubting your life, ruining your life, there is again no turning back. You take it and you move as fast as you can. There is no time for fear. You've seen the worst. When you are in a better position, after you live 10 years in a prison, you don't care anymore. So it allowed me to really shape this company to scale as fast as we could have at that time.
Maybe just to double down on that, because I think it's interesting. We were founded in 2015. We bootstrapped for a year, but since the 1 year, kind of, I guess 10 people or something, we just continuously grew in headcount. For you, probably it was much more like a very long, like the consulting arm, a consistent sized business, and then all of a sudden growing to thousands of employees over a short amount of time. How is that kind of from a company, like leading a company, and the culture shifting all of a sudden from the survival mode to being the prison cell, fighting every day, to now all of a sudden, there's all this demand and that shift, and how did that change the way you had to lead the company?
I realized in the past 5 years, 6 years since this growth has started, that the most difficult thing in building the company is actually building the teams. It's not the vision, it's not the product, it's building the teams. And it's not only engineering teams, building the teams, dealing with people, understanding psychology, making them rowing in the same direction. If you are able to get hundreds of people believing in something, rowing in the same direction, this is an unbelievable force. And I've seen it working. So it was really crazy what happened, but we had some guiding principles into how to build our company. And I was, watching Silicon Valley for many years before I was in the position to build this. So I really took a lot from their playbook, starting with culture. We studied quite a lot Netflix culture. That was kind of instrumental into building our own culture, in understanding how to build a company at scale. And it's not only, it's really seeding the good values into the company. And again, after a lot of debate within the circle of founders and early people about what we are, we went through this important exercise. Let's define who we are by only one value that we aspire to the most, not necessarily what we are today, but what we aspire to. So this is when I've come with the concept of humility. And it's extremely powerful. Because in a way, to me, it's an aspiration of a human being, of all human beings. To be humble, it's an aspiration. We all like humble people, not arrogant people. It's kind of obvious. And being humble lets you listen more, learn faster, change your mind faster. It's literally a no-brainer. But it's not easy to get there. But if you anchor your culture in humility and you keep repeating it, somehow it works. You are able to hire at large scale people that at least embrace it, are familiar with the concept, and it kind of it helps ingraining into them. This is the operating model. So to me, that was the only way that helped us to scale from, think about July 2015, so 6 years ago, we were 10 people. 31st of December, so 1st of January 16, we were like 30. Then 1st of January 16, yes, 30. And then first 17, we were maybe 100. 1st January 18, 500. And then the craziness happened. In mid-19, we were 3,400. So from 500 to 3,400 in 18 months. That was pure craziness. And we made lots of mistakes, obviously. And we had to change leaders. We have to restructure the company. But it's all for good. You learn from mistakes. And if you are able to correct the course really early, and to me, it's like in cancer detection. This is a company where I invested and I like it. They say best cure for cancer is prevention. It's early detection. Same in the life of the company. Best cure, it's early detection of the problems and then having the mindset to correct them at all costs.
Yeah.
So humility helps. It's fantastic, really. I don't understand why not so. I think it should work for everybody, especially in this modern economy, remote economy.
So back a bit to the journey from inception of the company towards the IPO. What was the phase you enjoyed most, and what are the and why kind of did you like a specific phase maybe more than others?
I think the most I enjoyed around 2016, 17, when I started to scale. It was clear we are onto something huge, important. but still it was a lot of chaos. It was a lot of energy, coming every time in a room here back in Bucharest and seeing new faces. Always, we had the all hands and always new guys. It was something interesting, very colorful in a way. After we reach a certain stage, and my job changed a lot over the past 5 years. It's day and night, and I know that you are experiencing the same. And so now I'm working more with my leadership team. I'm working more in a close circle. And I don't see the power, especially during COVID, I don't see so much the power of the people getting together, cheering. I think it's way more distant than, it used to be. When it was hands on the metal, now it's like flying by wire, the company. So to me, I enjoyed the most that time. But for my own development as an individual, what I've been through in the last 2 years were way more important. I think I understood a lot more about leading a company at scale, which is a challenge in itself. And it's different level of experience completely.
One kind of more product question from you, just having gone through an IPO. What's your general view on the changing public markets? Also, some trends like going public via SPACs. Would you expect this is something that will become more common, or is it just a trend that goes away very quickly?
I think it's a solid offering. In a way, you get very fast on the market via SPAC. And I'm not sure the best companies will choose the SPAC way, because you miss the roadshow, talking to investors. I think there are some things that you miss in the process and you like to do. And even speaking, it's a very interesting, we learn quite a lot on the topic of direct listing and IPO. So I really, at the end of the day, I believe, both are sound, and you just need to carefully see what's good for your company. But clearly we proved in a way that our IPO was a success from the traditional IPO perspective.
Maybe two questions to kind of round off the conversation. One around the last 18 months with COVID and all the challenges we faced. What was the impact for you on the business, both when it comes to some of the trends accelerating that were maybe helpful for business, but also like as a business with customers, but also internally as a company, and then kind of the way working together has changed? Well, what did you observe over the past year?
Well, I'll start internally, where we, even before COVID, we had the policy of remote working for everyone. So basically, we allow everyone in the company to simply stay. Today, I work from home. No explanation needed. No, I am tired, or I'm sick, or nothing. Today, I work from home. That's okay. So our systems were ready for that type of environment. So switching to complete remote work was really a piece of cake for us. So we were quite good. And as many other companies, we have experienced kind of a productivity increase in the first few months. Now I think it's decreasing. I can tell many people can't wait to go back to the office and get the environment in. So I'm a believer in a hybrid environment going forward, not necessarily in a complete remote environment. Maybe it's gonna work for a few companies, but even in that case, you still need to meet from time to time. Teams, brainstorming, you cannot do brainstorming remotely. Let's be serious. You cannot stay on a Zoom and do a brainstorm. It's not, you need to be in the room to breathe, to have time, space, move. This is what powers the brain to come with new ideas, to be creative. So in terms of business, man, initially it was very scary. So I still remember, it's not so far away, but in March, April, man, everybody we were talking to told us, guys, you should prepare for like 30% missing your target. And back then we already had decent targets. We understood the game in town. 30% missing the real target that you hope to achieve, actually, to 50, 80%. I said, fuck, man, how the company would look like. And really was, we look into how to downsize the company, how to react to different, what can happen. Maybe people would not even honor their commitments. And it can be like a big disaster. And it's a good exercise, actually. I would recommend to everyone to go through this. Say, if you miss 50% your target, what would you do in order to survive? And I think even if you don't do this, but the exercise in itself will show you some things that don't work in the company and how you will go when you really have to squeeze yourself. So it was good. It prepared us for we even streamlined more the company without really significant layoffs or anything. But we streamlined some roles, we changed a bit the structure. And meanwhile, we've seen that actually we are hitting our targets. So it was clear at this point that we are hitting our internal targets that we set. And that was a big relief. And that was the moment when we could raise again money. So think about in March, even April, we were thinking 30% missing. In June, we raised money at 50% increase in valuation compared to our Series D. It was just in the span of 3 months. It was interesting to see. But net, COVID for us was neutral in the sense that we really hit the target pre-COVID set. So it was clear neutral. It was not a Zoom-like. Zoom really was good. But I think the awareness for digital transformation has increased multiple times. And we are seeing a positive momentum in the market.
When you have to give advice about people founding a company, probably like not maybe the early stage of founding, but really starting to grow them and wanting to build them to a long stage business. We talked about values and the people and their importance, which are fully a second, and we talked about the goal setting process. What would be one last learning you would leave people with, or advise what to focus on, or how to make sure to build a long lasting business in the software space?
Well, I will reiterate, which is the norm today, to be customer-centric and focused. And I think especially for founders coming from an engineering background, this is not quite obvious to them because they have a feeling they know better than the customer, what's good for the customer. And this is rarely true. Of course, you can come up with the new innovative concept, but in order to perfect it, you need customers' input. You are not better. Your customers are better than you in using your product. First of all, because they are using it, and they bet, their operations, their life, their careers on. So you need to respect this, but in a very deep way. Because if a customer comes to you and say, I have a problem with this, and you cannot afford to tell them, guys, but we have a different agenda, solving your problem will impact our roadmap, we will put it, but we will deliver to you in 6 months. If you do this, you are not customer-centric. No, customer-centric, you go to your engineer and say, guys, I don't want to hear anything. You deliver it by in the next week. We stop everything. But a customer, it's more important than the product. I think I'm talking about B2B. I have no idea how in B2C things work.
Yeah.
In B2B, a customer is more important than your roadmap that what you do in the next 3 months or so, especially early one. It's 100% more important. Customers give you the credibility, reference into an entire industry. They can act as reference to investors. Your valuation is not by the number of features in the product. It's a multiple to the revenue that the customer brings. It's a no-brainer, but people fail to understand this, and they cannot change the mind. This is why I am right versus people ruin their life because they try to prove they are right. I don't give a shit. If you are right, it means you are fucking lucky. Nobody is right on this world. You cannot bend the reality according to your will. If you had the theory that proves that to be the one that was correct and kind of estimated the future and reality, you are just lucky. Get with this theory in mind and you'll be way better off.
That makes a lot of sense. I have one follow-up question on that to make it a bit harder, because I fully agree with the customer empathy and the focus on them. I think there's just a bit of customers having a problem and wanting something immediately. And then, of course, there's a bit of the roadmap of things you promised to customers and customers signing up because you said you deliver something. Well, how would you balance that?
It's an interesting balance. But in terms of, I would always prioritize way higher things that customer requested versus things that your product managers and engineers want to put in the product. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Of course, if you have to really choose one versus the other, I think that's also part of your customer. If you have a chance to acquire a new customer that can bring your business to a new level, I would go to my existing customers and I'll tell them honestly, guys, I love you, we'll do everything for you, but this time we have to deliver this one because this is quintessential. Our business will go to the next stage and in turn is gonna help you even more. But we need to do this at this point. You go with all the integrity and honesty and say this and they will understand. Because they will do the same.
Yeah, and it comes back to the humility you mentioned earlier, that we fail to know things in advance, and then you're open, honest, and integer towards your customers. So that makes sense. Great. Daniel, thank you very much for the interview. I think I personally found it very interesting.
Next time is my turn. So I hope you'll really go and build a sustainable company. You'll IPO. It's a joy.
I'm very eager to follow your path and continue to strengthen the European tech ecosystem. Thanks, Daniel, and look forward to catching up soon again. Ciao.
Bye.